Charim, I'm Stephen DeNoon. You're watching Israeli News Live, and this evening's broadcast is one that I would have rather had different circumstances in actually speaking on the subject here. As you might see on the screen there, the recording we're doing here, dangers Christians face with Noahide laws. And that's our subject tonight. Of course, we're going to be getting a little into different areas, Talmudic areas. We're going to be going into, well, a number of issues there. This all stem from what I mentioned in our broadcast the other day, where very, very precious friends of ours, Brother Paul Begley, Sister Heidi Begley, while they were in Japan, they were in one of their regular broadcasts, and they were talking about President Trump and his stance for pro-life. And right in the middle of that conversation, as they were on the issue of the president standing for pro-life, the subject comes up of Noahide laws. And I assume this is maybe because of people in the chat room talking about the Noahide laws. Because the fact that Brother Paul and Sister Heidi, they are very avid supporters of President Donald Trump, and they have that right to. I may not agree with President Trump's policies, but everyone has a right to choose who they feel like best would be suited for President of the United States. And I am going to address a little bit on the issue about the abortion stance there, because I know that President Trump did make a change in his stance on that. But as I said, though, I really want to lay the foundation here because I'm going to be playing two clips from the video that Brother Paul did and Sister Heidi. And you have to understand, just for those that are listening here, I've talked to Brother Paul on several occasions already, myself, me, and Yana both, about Noahide laws, about the dangers of them, how bad they are. We have reached out yet a third time and have asked to come to meet with them privately and to really lay down the best we can of how dangerous this situation is. When I talked to Brother Paul last time by phone, he agreed with me in principle on these issues here. And but I can see that undoubtedly somebody's gotten to him and have convinced him that there's just nothing to this. Same with Sister Heidi. And I know Sister Heidi was listening on the phone call we had last time, where I was really trying to talk to Brother Paul about just how dangerous these are. But now that this is, Brother Paul has had to make, he's pretty much made a public stance on this. This is just some of the information I would have shared with Brother Paul and Sister Heidi on the issue of Noahide laws. So as I'm doing this, understand this is not an attack on Brother Paul. It's not an attack on Sister Heidi. I know we have differences of opinions on things, and that's never really been a problem. We know we don't agree on everything, but we've always remained friends. And but this is a very serious issue that's going on, and because Brother Paul has addressed it publicly now, and I felt like that I will go ahead and make a public defense for this. Not that we haven't already made a public defense for it before, but I'm hoping by doing it this way here, Brother Paul then will take and sit down, and him and Sister Heidi will look at some of the evidence that I'll present here. Yana will actually be doing more videos on this as well. We'll probably do a Stephen Yana chat where we go into more details. Won't be bringing Brother Paul back into it at that point there, but I need to be able to play so you can see what Brother Paul is saying. I mean, it's already public, so it's not like it's not out there. But I say this in love for my brother and sister there. And I do ask, please don't go beat them up in their chat room, things like that. If Brother Paul feels differently on these things, and if him and Sister Heidi continue to feel differently on it, then that's the course they take, and that's their choice. Okay, so we need to respect that. And but at the same time, people have got to be warned of what's the truth. And I agree with Brother Paul when he said, read your Bible, stay with your Bible. Brother Paul does assert that there is no prophecy about it. This is one reason why he's not gone into the Noahide laws. He said he's known about it for 2 years, but he didn't go into it because it's not prophetic. It's very prophetic. I will go into the prophecies on this tonight. He said it's a very small movement, less than 2%. Well, that could be debatable, but the biggest issue is even if you were to say it's 2%, which I do not believe that, I believe it's much, much higher. Because, now granted, secular Jews, we have a lot of secular Jews that are not religious. That would be a totally different issue altogether. I do agree with Brother Paul. Jews are not our issue. They're not our problem. I mean, you have to understand, I come from a Jewish background. I love my people very much. And my desire is for them to believe that Jesus Christ is the Messiah. But at the same time, there are some very sinister elitists amongst the Jewish, not just the Chabad organization, but the Chabad organization is the organization that is pushing the Noahide laws, and they are the ones that influence governments on a global scale, including that of Russia, America, of course Israel, majorly in Israel as well, Menachem Schneerson, and you have to understand this as well. And Brother Paul, I just speak to you, my brother, because I love you. All right? I know you have Jewish friends that you have been meeting since you've been going to Israel, things of that nature as well. You have different rabbis that you know, and maybe you've talked to some of these rabbis and they tell you this is no big deal. All right? I personally was a Chabad member for more than 20 years. Even though I was a believer, I was very, very deeply involved with rabbis, other Orthodox Jews. I had Reform rabbis that were good friends of mine as well, but most of them were Chabad rabbis that I knew. I was asked to speak and to get rabbis to attend the Night to Honor of Israel because I was so well connected with the rabbis. And of course, when you're that deeply involved with this organization, these were my friends. These were, like you have your close friends, these were my friends. And I know what goes on behind those closed doors. I know what the feeling towards Christians are. Very few of them ever cared anything about Christians. Didn't trust them. Never would trust them. You know, I come from a family also that suffered in the Holocaust, mostly distant family from me because my family escaped the persecution in Germany before the war and came to the United States. But the thing is, I have those type connections. I've listened to the comments about enslaving Gentiles and what's going to happen to the Christians in the future, and a lot of that I kind of brushed off as like, that just can't be true. I don't see how that could ever happen. Just like what Michael Brown, Michael Brown came on Israeli News Live, and he admitted that these Noahide laws are true. They are in the Talmud. He admitted that. But he did not think that they would become anything of an issue. He said, unless we end up with a Jewish Antichrist. So I give Michael Brown that credit there. Unless. All right? But it is a major issue. If you'd have spent, and some of these people, I don't have association with them very much anymore, but some of these people I knew so well. And like I said, you have no clue. Brother Paul, you have no idea what is said about Gentiles behind closed doors. And I know personally some of the most well-respected evangelicals that are out there right now. I know personally, I could be putting photos up here of people that I know like this, very well known, that are directly supported by the Chabad Jews. all for the agenda, for the ecumenical movement. I know that Biltz was involved in that as well. All right? I can't say that he's supported by Chabad Jews. I don't know about him. I didn't know Biltz personally. But a lot of these others I do know very well. It wasn't until God began to wake me up of what's really going on and showing me in prophecy the things that are happening, as well with Yana, my wife, just the research that she does and the volumes and volumes of books that are read. I read fairly well myself, but my wife, other than the religious texts, which she's read a lot of those as well, but all these books on this bookshelf, she's read every single one of them. So we don't say these things lightly. And this is not anti-Semitism either, as it's so easily, that word is so easily thrown around out there. The only people that ever really, I mean, there are a lot of good Gentiles out there too, good friends, Christians and stuff, that will stand up and tell you the truth of what's going on. And I do realize there are some commentators out there that seem to tend to go more to what I would call an anti-Semitic type of speech as well, which is not good. But the thing is, there is a real present danger that we're facing here. And it's got to be addressed. And as Christians, if you don't realize what's coming, this Antichrist system will sweep you in and will take you down like you've never seen before in your life. So yes, we're going to the Bible tonight. And we're going to look at the prophecies that are laying there that even show what's going to happen under Noahide laws. All right? They are Talmudic. They're not biblical, although they appear to be biblical. We'll get into that. I don't know how well you can see some of the books that I have here on my desk, but I've pulled, and the camera's not showing you all the way down. I have right here, let's see, one Mishnah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Talmudic books sitting here on my desk, actually 6 that we'll be speaking about tonight. Just showing you some of the things in the Talmud that you may be aware of, but I'll take you right into it. We're recording the screen so you can see and hear things much better. I don't want there to be any mistakes. You can see a lot of my Talmudic books are missing over here because they are stacked here on the desk. I didn't pull down the Zohar books because I just don't have enough room for everything, but I will be dealing with some of these things from the Zohar as well. There are 2 Zohars. A lot of people don't know that, just like Talmuds. I have the Sensino Talmud. The Sensino Talmud is the one that carries the things that you don't get to see in a regular Talmud. All right, so I get the real deal. Zohar as well, same way. There's Zohars that have more information than most, but those are very hard to come by. And believe me, unless you're Jewish and really know how to order these things, you're not going to get it. They're not just going to let it out to anybody. All right, so again, I love Brother Paul, Sister Heidi, and I just encourage you, please, don't go attack them just because we have a different opinion on these things here, okay? So let's be in prayer and with love. That's the way it should be, always be. All right, so let's get started right here. We'll go ahead and start this screen recording is already running, so let's go ahead and get here. It's part of the PowerPoint that I did here, and I'm going to actually jump out of the PowerPoint here in just a second, but let's play this first part of the video.
Sadly, the far left is actively working to erase our God-given rights, shut down faith-based charities, ban religious believers from the public square, and silence Americans who believe in the sanctity of life. Trump said to a wild applause, "They are coming after me because I'm fighting for you, and we are fighting for those who have no voice, and we will win because we know how to win." He invoked God in his closing comments as well. Good. This is a very special moment. It is so great to represent you. I love you all, and I say with
I want to, before I continue to go on, because there's sometimes I need to stop this and then address some of these things here. President Trump, there's a couple of things that I do appreciate about President Trump. I appreciate the fact that he is standing up for pro-life. I do appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that when I listened to that audio recording and he's talking to this group of men there, including Lev Parnas that was sitting there, that he does sincerely seem to care about the business aspect to help the United States to become a strong, viable nation. Although we're so far in debt, I realize it'll never happen. It'll never actually come to pass. But I appreciate those things about him. However, though, you have to understand, President Trump was not always pro-life. And although I appreciate the fact that he's standing there now for it, and you know, that's a good thing, all right? But you have to understand, he was not always pro-life. He was actually just the opposite of that. And if you look on your screen here, Trump shifted from pro-choice to pro-life only as he planned a presidential run. And this is very true as well. I've got here, in this book here, this was something Yana brought to my attention because we had ordered the book Fear by Bob Woodward. And I know President Trump came out and said that it was false, that it's not true, that this is all fabricated. But this was from a recorded document that this was taken on page 3 and on pages 4 and 5. And this is also where it talks about he had to make a change on his, in order to become a Republican and run, he'd have to be a pro-life president. And I don't take very much into consideration when President Trump says this is all fake and none of it is true in there, because I also know he said that he never knew Parnas and that was fake too. And yet at the same time, when he claims to be a Christian, he said he never had to repent. That he's a good guy, he doesn't bring God into those things, stuff like that. So it's not the normal talk of what we know as a Christian to begin with, but that's between him and God. All right, and so with that in mind, I want to just share with you, though, what it says here, and so you can see this on your screen as well in this book right here, and the highlighted portions what we'll look at. I'm a busy guy, Trump reminded them. I'm not professional ladder climber in politics. If you're going to run for president, Bussey said, you have to know lots of little things and lots of big things. The little things were filing deadlines, state rules, and primaries, minute. You have to know the policy side and how to win delegates. But first, he said, you need to understand the conservative movement. Trump nodded. You've got some problems on issues, Bossy said. I don't have any problems on issues, Trump said. What are you talking about? First off, there's never been a guy with a Republican primary that's not pro-life, Bossy said. And unfortunately, you're very pro-choice. What does that mean? You have a record of giving to abortion guys, the pro-choice candidates. You've made statements. You got to be pro-life against abortion. I'm against abortion, Trump said. I'm pro-life. Well, you've got a track record, and that can be fixed, Trump said. You just tell me how to fix that. What do you call it? Pro-life? I'm pro-life. I'm telling you. All right, so you have to keep in mind the president didn't even know really the terminology at that time, and that's all right. I don't fault the man on that either. All right, but nonetheless, that's, like I said, I appreciate the fact, even if he, if we want to argue he was really pro-life the entire time, but there's another place where he talks about when he made his change, things like that. So that's just to start that up right there. Now, also on his the speech where they're talking about is this speech right here, where President Trump is talking about being pro-life, and it is a very moving speech. But then again, most president speeches are always moving, and the reason being is because they're written by excellent speech writers, and all they do is they read off of a teleprompter. It's very unusual for any president of the United States not to read off of a teleprompter. But one thing that he did say in here, though, that caught my attention as well, is where he talks about freedom of speech for pro-choice students on the campuses. And then he attaches that to the First Amendment for freedom of speech. And I want to just play that little clip for you, and then I want to show you what he signed, which everybody knows about it, but I'll show you what he signed in just a moment, though. Listen into this little clip here.
We are protecting pro-life students' right to free speech on college campuses. And if universities want federal taxpayer dollars, then they must uphold your First Amendment right to speak your mind, and if they don't, they pay a very big financial penalty, which they will not be willing to pay.
All right, so the president is for the First Amendment when it comes to pro-life, and I really do appreciate that. But when it came to what they call anti-Semitism on college campuses, which there may be anti-Semitism there, but it mainly was dealing with Israel boycotts. And this is generally those that speak on college campuses are former IDF soldiers, Israelis, Jewish people, like Lev Parat, that has spoken on college campuses around the country, bringing attention to Americans of the cruelty that's being done to Palestinians. And I happen to be a secondhand knowledge of this because one good friend of mine that was my roommate back in 2004 in Israel, that was a IDF soldier, that also confessed and told me about shooting and killing Palestinians for sport. So I know these things are true. And but President Trump signed an executive order targeting college anti-Semitism and Israel boycotts, according to the news there. But basically, he stopped freedom of speech is what he did. So, you know, he's for freedom of speech on things that would probably matter most to conservative Christians. And I do appreciate that. But when it comes to people that are just trying to be able to tell the truth, he's not for that. Just like Florida here, the governor here, DeSantis, also signed an executive order, or excuse me, it actually passed here in Florida against, on all the college campuses and public schools, they cannot speak anything against Israel. Now, you have to understand, this is not just anti-Semitism. This is, because I would be for it. If it was for anti-Semitism, hatred against the Jewish people, I would be for it. I have no problem with that. But the bill, as the attorneys that opposed it here, and including 2 rabbis, were all Jewish. Not one single Gentile Christian attorney was on the board in Florida that came against it. It was 2 Jewish attorneys and 2 rabbis that came against the bill in Florida, saying that it goes against the First Amendment right. They have a right to be able to speak, because what they pointed out in the bill here in Florida, which is just like the bill the president signed for the executive order across the country, was the fact that if you speak about the what's happening to the Palestinians in Israel, if you speak about, for example, 9/11 being an inside job and the Israelis having anything to do with it, the Mossad or anything like that, that's considered going against this law as well. Practically anything you were to challenge, if it's got anything attached to Israel, including the almost sinking of the USS Liberty, which I had inside information even from Mossad on that, you know, Israel knew exactly what they were doing when they attacked this ship. But to say that on a college campus is a criminal act. So there is no freedom of speech when it comes to those issues. So freedom of speech is becoming dictated what's free to speak about and what's not free to speak about. All right? So I just wanted to share that with you. Let's go back to the PowerPoint and we'll continue the video here. And I guess maybe I might have to look at where we stop at each time.
Sadly, the far left, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you all.
Now, Paul says in here that he invoked God 8 times. You know, all your presidents normally say, God bless America, things like that. That doesn't impress me. In fact, Paul Begley is the only person I ever saw in a public political rally do what I would call invoking God. And invoking God is when you say the name of Jesus Christ. And I don't know of any politicians in modern time that have done that. You might have some say they're going to pray in the name of God, but you know what? That could be any old God. Now, I realize what President Trump is trying to say, but to me, that's not really invoking God. You know, we're made in the image of God. I appreciate that, you know, but say the name of Jesus Christ. That's really invoking God. Let's continue.
Going on about Trump in the chat room, maybe you should listen to some of those words.
Well said, Heidi. I mean, those were the words of the President of the United States, who spoke before 100,000 people at the annual Right to Life rally. 100,000. Did the media even show up to this? I didn't even know what was going on. Of course, I'm way over here, and I'm depending on the media to tell me this is happening. And of course, the media is not telling me this is happening.
Of course not.
And so the President of the United States defending the rights of the unborn, and evoking God 8 times.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I am about sick
quoting
of
scripture.
all this Noahide business, too.
Yeah, get over it. Get over the... Guys, let me tell you something about the Noahide. Get over it.
You guys need to look at Sharia laws.
The Sharia law is... read what a Sharia... Don't even have to read Sharia law. Watch what the people who believe in Sharia law do to people. They cut their heads off. And they've been killing and murdering and abusing and raping and slaughtering innocent people. And we're sitting around twiddling our thumbs over something that's never going to... It has nothing... It's a very less than 2% of the Jewish sect. It's less than 2%. Hiding in a corner over there.
And that Jewish sect actually went and attended, what was the guy's name that got droned?
Qassam Soleimani.
Yes, that sect that is against Noahide laws went and attended his funeral. So you might want to pay attention to who you're supporting.
Yeah, so guys, don't worry about the Noahide laws. This is did you ever hear of flat earth, the Mandela effect? This is about the same thing. It's going nowhere. It has nowhere to go. The real problem you have is the beast kingdom that's going to rise. I mean, I have to just tell you the truth, because there's so much of this garbage out there on the internet that people are confused by, and they really do. They get confused.
Sadly.
All right. So we get into this part here about the Noahide laws, and Brother Paul, Sister Heidi saying that these laws they're going nowhere. It's a very small little 2% that are involved in this that say anything about it. And these are some of the things that are being stated right now. That they're nothing, that we should be paying attention more to Sharia law. You know, there's a lot can be said on that issue right there. Brother Paul, I would remind you one thing, because I know you covered this a good while back, when all the guillotines showed up in America. And those guillotines are still here. Everybody, of course, was thinking Sharia law, and even back then myself, I was thinking the same thing, Sharia law. And believe me, if Sharia law was being put as Education Day bill by honoring now the late Menachem Schneerson, under our education, 112-14 in the education law there, I would be up in arms about that as well. And I know we can say, okay, look at what they're doing right now. They're beheading people. I've covered it on Israeli News Live many, many times. A lot of the people that are doing the beheadings over in Syria during that war there were actually Al-Qaeda and Al-Nusra, who was supported openly and admittedly by the Israeli government. Not just the Israeli government, the United States government, the Turkish government, all of those supporting these people that are out there beheading people. And even President Trump said the United States helped create ISIS. Nobody wants to admit that, right? Now, let me just show you something though, right? We have, let's see here. Let's see. Trying to find this one here. Hang on. These are all Noahide laws things here. In the Orthodox Jewish world, especially the Chabad Jewish world, to be the Mashiach, the Messiah. There are many that still believe that he will be resurrected. If you visit Israel, that face you see right there on your screen, you will see that everywhere in Israel. If you go up to New York, you'll see his face everywhere up there. This is the birthday that is being honored by the presidents of the United States in the White House here on a regular basis. Every year they sign honoring on his birthday, Rabbi Menachem Schneerson, they sign on his birthday the Seven Noahide Laws as part of the Education Day. Right? That was President Reagan, the first one on the screen there. Then you have here President Bush Sr., as I call him there, signing that every year, right? And of course, this was also at the same time, you don't see him sign it, President Bill Clinton, but he also was signing it every year while he was in office. So he signed it 8 times in a row. Then you had Bush, what I call Bush Jr., signing it on a regular basis as well. You had Obama signing it for 8 years in a row. He signed those Noahide laws. So it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, or whatever. Every president, right down to President Donald Trump, signing the Noahide laws on an annual basis. Now, as Heidi pointed out, though, she said you should be more concerned about Sharia law. They're the ones doing the beheading. All right, this is the argument that Heidi makes. They're the ones doing the beheading. And if it wasn't that this is such a lengthy message to deal with, I would have actually put in all the support document, which I've already done it on Israeli News Live too many times, showing those that support the people that cut off heads in the Middle East there, all right? But this is just part of that I wanted to share with you. Now, before we continue on there, let me go here, because we're fixing to get into a lot of things from the Talmud as well. All right, but let me take you, as I said, these sites here. This one here, the Talmud, has a Jewish law book become so popular. All right, the Talmud, why has the Jewish law book become so popular? This was BBC covering this. And some of the statistics they get into this over here was kind of interesting. The Talmud is growing popularity. In 1975, the completion of the seventh cycle was marked by an event in New York's Manhattan Center with 5,000 attendees. Now, that's 1975, mind you. And keep in mind, the reason why I'm showing you the things about the growing popularity of the Talmud is because the Talmud is where the Noahide laws are at. All right, so you have to understand why we're linking these two together, right? In 1990, there were 20,000 people in attendance in Manhattan, right? By 2012, they were maxing out the stadium, MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, sold out 90,000 seats, and again, every year after year after year, they're totally sold out every time. They're talking about a big moment came in 2005 when the publication of the first complete English language edition of the work for more than 50 years, and they've had 15 million downloads, okay, of mostly the entire Talmudic volumes. I think it's what, 33, I think, 33, 32 volumes, something like that. I have them all, so I know exactly what they're talking about. And it's nearly impossible to go through it all, but it is a major growing movement. All right, talk about Noahide laws. We're going to break everything down here in just a minute. I'm going to go back to the abortion debate here just a little bit as well. But talking about the Noahide laws as well, and I brought this out yesterday when I did it, or day before yesterday when I did the message there, first starting in on this issue. This is the two head rabbis of Israel. We have one Sephardic, one Ashkenazi rabbi. And here he says here, non-Jews should not live in the land of Israel unless they accept the 7 Noahide laws, Israel's Sephardic chief rabbi said. Rabbi Yitzhak Yosef made the statement during this week's Saturday night lecture. Israel's Channel 10 first reported. Channel 10's obtained a copy of the recording of the lecture, which is posted on its website. According to Jewish law, Gentiles should not live in the land of Israel, Yosef said. If a Gentile does not agree to take on the 7 Noahide laws, we should send him to Saudi Arabia when the true and complete redemption arrives. That is what we will do. Do you know why he's talking about sending you to Saudi Arabia? Because the Saudis will carry out cutting your head off. So you're right in that regard there under Sharia law. But it's also a law in the Talmud that you're to behead those that break the laws of the Noahide laws. Whoa, I'm going to show you that in just a moment. All right. Now, I don't know if you know this, and it's another subject altogether. Yana will probably take up that argument there. But the Saudi kingdom to begin with is nothing but crypto Jews as well. Different sect altogether. Sabbatean Jews, in fact. Franco-Sabbatean Jews is who they really were. That's a different subject. Won't get into that right now. But let's quickly hit all the ones here on these articles here. Then I want to quickly address abortion, because I'm pro-life myself, and I have hammered my people for not being pro-life in Israel. And that's something I don't see Christian pastors taking up that battle either. All right, so let's look at these here though first. Sanhedrin moves to establish a council for Noahides. That's the Sanhedrin court who everybody seems to think that they're no big deal. Well, let me tell you something. Michelle Bachmann, who was former presidential candidate and former, what was she, congresswoman or senator? I forget which one now. But anyway, Michelle Bachmann actually was there in Europe on a rally to move the International Criminal Court to Israel and put it under the Sanhedrin. Everything you can look at is being set up for a new world order, and Jerusalem being the headquarters of that new world order. I used to always think it was the Vatican. And then I've seen the Vatican make the covenant with Israel. And then, of course, I've seen all these other people like Kenneth Copeland, all these guys here sucking up to the Pope of Rome, coming in and making this agreement. And then what they do, they took them right into Israel, made the covenant with Israel. And this is what I got in trouble for with this group of evangelicals, because they got on to me for speaking against this ecumenical movement, because it's something they'd been working on for years with Israel to get them to sign this ecumenical movement, right? Anyway, Sanhedrin calls on President Trump to uphold the Seven Noahide Laws, right? Well, what do you know? They're the ones that are boosting his ego and everything, telling him he's the Osiris coming back. In an ancient and honored Jewish custom, the nascent Sanhedrin sent a letter to the new leader of the U.S. President, Donald Trump, blessing him, calling on him to take the lead in restoring America and the world. The Sanhedrin also called on the new president to acknowledge and uphold the Seven Noahide Laws. What? I thought this was not very popular. I thought it was only 2% of some kind of radical Jews that are all about it, right? Well, here's you, an American Orthodox Jew, a Chabad Jew, on Chabad.org's website at the United Nations. Let's listen to what he has to say. This is Rabbi Goldstein, by the way. And listen, I condemn wholeheartedly this act of violence that was done at the synagogue, that he is the rabbi of there, you know. I'm against that type of things. I'm against those type of violent things that happen. But watch what he says, though. I'm definitely not in favor for him imposing Noahide laws on my Christian brothers and sisters. You know? And by the way, for Jewish people like me, I would be forced to go under all Talmudic laws. You think I'm going under Talmudic law? There's no way. So you have no idea, Brother Paul, you have no idea what you're talking about on this issue here. Listen to this, though.
All of you here have been given by God an opportunity to make a difference in the world. And the Rebbe taught us something very poignant, that indeed, when the world was repopulated after the flood with Noah, God gave 7 laws called the Noahide Laws. This is the bedrock of any civilization that were to exist. And the Rebbe pleaded, if only the United Nations will go back to the basics and empower their nation to adopt the 7 Noahide laws, then this world would be a very different world, and perhaps we wouldn't have lost 150 million lives that we have lost in the last 200 years. So I ask every nation that's here, everyone that's listening, consider taking the 7 Noahide laws back to the basics and apply it to real daily life, and we will see a world difference.
Now, I have to disagree with the Rebbe on this, because the United States judicial system is based on the 10 Commandments. Pretty much so. And it hasn't done anything. You know, we have laws against murder, against idolatry. Well, I don't know about idolatry, but he's trying to get laws that are not even biblical. I mean, I realize they look like biblical, but you have to understand, when you're accepting the 7 Noahide laws, You're not just accepting that little face value, don't commit idolatry. Well, we know God said that in the Ten Commandments. All right? It also says, thou shalt not kill. That says that in the Ten Commandments. But it's the breakdown and the sub-laws that are also in the Talmud that you're going to find out about, that you don't take just one little tiny little sentence. You got to take the whole thing. And it's not in your Bible. All right? And it's going to put Christians to death. And beheading is the way of death. Remember what the rabbi said. Oh wow. Let me go back to him for just a second, right? When the true complete redemption arrives, that is what we will do. What are they going to do? They're going to send all these Gentiles that don't keep the 7 Noahide laws to Saudi Arabia. By the way, for those that do not know, and I did an entire message on this, a 21st degree Mason, because I know Heidi and Paul brought up the issue about some of those that like quote, oh gosh, what's the guy's name? I forget his name now. The guy that wrote the book, I know it, but it's like my mind is blank on it. That wrote the 32nd degree Mason handbook there, Albert Pike, that's who it is. They act like that he was not for Noahide laws. The 21st degree of the Freemasonry are called Noahides. In fact, I'll show that to you, in case you didn't know that. 21st degree Freemason is a Noah, they actually spell a little different, Noahide. All right, that's what they are. Let's see here. Freemasons, Noahide scheme is right. 21st degree Mason, Noahide judges. That may be my own video, in fact. Yes, it is. It sure is. That's my video on Israeli News Live right there. And in here, I go into that issue there that they are Freemasons. I can't highlight it at all. And says, I'm going to try to make it bigger. I really want to make sure you guys can see this. All right. It says that they brought over from the flood the traditions and arts of the Andaluvians and communicated them to their growing offspring. And this was perhaps the first time that the patriarch was presented to the attention of the fraternity in a Masonic character. Anderson seems to have cherished this idea, for in the second edition of the Constitutions, he still further develops it by saying that the offspring of Noah, as they journeyed from the east, the plains of Mount Ararat, where the ark rested, towards the west, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and dwelt there together as Noahide, or sons of Noah. All right, this guy Anderson is the very guy that slipped in to the Freemason groups there back in around 1720. And you have to understand, when I say slipped into the Freemasons, and I do clarify it in here, I don't support Masonry at all. All right, but it was an infiltration into those people's organization, and they ended up making the 21st degree Freemason, and I'll just see if I can find that for you in here. I don't know if I can, just jumping around in here, but I go into this in this video here that the 21st degree Mason is judge, jury, and executioner for the Noahide courts. Yes, he is. His whole symbolism, everything, that's all in there. And I just wanted to see if I could find just where I do that. Because I show in this video that image as well of him, of that Noahide, that 21st degree Freemason, and what he actually is. And there we go, right there. Here, listen in. Which is going to bring about justice as basically as executioner. Let me read to you what they say about these particular things here. The dress is entirely black except the gloves and apron with sword, spurs, and black mask. Maybe we should look this up. Let's look this up. All right, so I'll just stop right there for you so you kind of know where we're going there. All right, now, let's see here. I know that I was going to get into this abortion thing as well, and we will go into that a little bit later, but let me just bring up one point here real quick as well. This is one Jewish rabbi. He is a radical, there's no doubt about it. But he says Gentile sperm leads to barbaric offspring. Rabbi Dov Lior says Jewish law prohibits sterile couples from conceiving using non-Jewish sperm as it causes adverse traits on subject of single mothers, he says. Child cannot be 100% normal. I mean, you got all kinds of crazy things out there, right? And Israel has got one of the most liberal abortion laws in all of the world. And it's not based on, and listen, again, I am pro-life, but I will tell you one thing. Israel's law is not even based like America, where they call it women's right to choose. It's all about nationalism. You're going to find that out. So you want to talk about perverted laws of abortion. And of course, you can also abort a child all the way up to the time it's coming out of the womb. In Israel also, if a woman is pregnant and she's being judged for execution, they could care less about the baby in the womb. They say, kill her anyway. That's a law. Not only a law in Israel, but it's a Talmudic law. So, this stuff, I mean, it's just nuts out there. You just, like I said, you have no clue of what I would be saying here. Again, we go through these presidents all supporting those Noahide laws there, etc. All right. Here's the abortion. We're going to go ahead and deal with the abortion part first here. This is called Wars of the Womb. And you can't, you might be able to find this document. DeNoon Institute is part of several organizations in Israel where we have access to documentation that's just not easy for the general public to get to. And so this is where that is from there. This was, it is written by a secular Jewish woman. She was for abortion, but they go into the debate, and it was called Wars of the Womb. And I just want to point out some points to you so you understand how Israel goes about abortion and how they came about the laws, right? And by the way, it was in 2014 under Netanyahu that we ended up going all the way to the third trimester abortions, and it was also under his watch there that Netanyahu allowed it to where, state paid for it. It became very easy. Even though they go through a procedure where they got to get permission from a rabbi and from a doctor, it's still, it's very nationalistic. Anyway, a woman may terminate a pregnancy up to full gestation. A minor does not require parental consent. The state pays for any legal abortions, regardless of circumstances. That's nuts. A minor child does not have to have parental consent. Mayor Weiss attributes this quest for the perfect child to the Israeli idealization of the chosen body, emanating from Zionist ideology. Right? All these names in here are Jewish women writing in these things, right? Tzipi Ivri argues, and I'll just go to the yellow only, she claims the predominance of the narrative of the existential threat simultaneously encourages and discourages fertility. Perhaps surprisingly, Jewish law has aided this permissive approach to selective abortion, since it affords the fetus no legal status. All right, so abortion has nothing to do with a woman's legal right, as they say here in the United States, right? It's all about, and you're going to see as we go along here, it's all about nationality. We've got to outrun the Arabs in babies. Okay, instead of rendering it part of its mother, as medical sociologist Yael Hashalino Dolev explains, Israel's history, politics, and even religion act as push factors for selective abortions. Nitzan Rahman Zarfati and Aviad Raz point out that from the perspective of population genetics, such abortions are not strictly speaking negative eugenics. So, if there's something they don't feel like is going to work out genetically, they abort the baby. Nevertheless, it could be argued that alongside other concerns, our form of negative eugenics has also qualified Israeli pro-nationalism. That's the big one right there at the bottom. Pro-nationalism is a means for justification of abortion. By the way, that's what caused the rabbis to really come on board, was that pro-nationalism. Not to mention abortion is legal in the Talmud under certain things as well, the way they wrote it. Anyway, still in the same article here, demographic anxiety heightened the aftermath of 1967 Arab-Israeli war, which brought 1 million more Palestinians under Israeli control. As Prime Minister Levi Eshkol lamented, "We won the war and received a nice dowry of territory, but it came with a bride we don't like." Lovely. Continuing on, government-backed private members bill submitted in 1974 by MK Chavev Shimoni. The rationale for the bill, as MKs argued, was a balance to revival demographic demands, while protecting or constraining what were perceived as vulnerable, dependent, and destabilizing social groups. Lovely. That's exactly what they do. Okay, abort the kids that you just don't want. It's almost like racial supremacy. Malthusian rationale helped to formulate different policy trajectories for different Jewish groups: anti-natalism for poor Jewish immigrants from third world countries, and pronatalism for middle-class families originating in Europe. That abortion would be permissible if pregnancy occurred out of wedlock or under an age of marriage or the age of 45. Again, though, if you'll notice, you will see there is constant racial superiority. Even amongst Jews, there's racial superiority, right? And I know that from personal friends that are Israelis that even tell me about these things, right? Anyway, wars of the womb, struggle over the abortion policies in Israel. Noticeably absent from the justification for the bill were references to woman's right to her body choice or privacy. Again, this is pro-life, pro-rights of women, Israeli women that were writing the article there, and that's why they point this out here. Distance itself from the anti-natalist and anti-family image associated with feminism, right? Now, I think this is the last frame we're going to do on this. Allowing abortion if the pregnancy was due to relations prohibited by criminal law or incestual or intramarital relations. So if it's adultery, they abort the child. And by the way, that one might shock you how that works. Permitting abortion if the child was likely to have a physical or mental defect placated those committed to children's and collective health. It revealed the absence of a right-based approach to fetus which did not explicitly clash with Orthodox views. Continuance of pregnancy would likely endanger the woman's life, satisfy the Orthodox legal position that abortion was permissible if the fetus became rodef or a pursuer. I got to just tell you something about that, the rodef clause there. You have to understand, that applies even if a woman were to get pregnant by a Palestinian, because the way the rabbis would interpret that child could end up siding with the Palestinian movement and eventually kill Jews. So therefore, that child should be aborted. Allowing abortions if the continuation of the pregnancy might cause severe damage to the woman or her children as a result of the difficult social and familial conditions. There again, they don't tell you as much in there, but that's what that's about. Satisfied a variety of social welfare concerns, right? Eliezer Shustak, the Minister of Health of a member of AY, argued that the law had increased the number of abortions, contradicting its intention. Most abortions were approved on the basis of the social clause. Other MKs described the social clause as self-destruction of the national suicide and expressed fear for the continuation of Jewish character of the state. Shlomo Yaakov Gross recalled an alleged Arab prophecy: "My friends, we the Arabs will defeat you not on the battlefield but in bed." And that's exactly what happens. We see that abortion is a national issue. It's to make sure that we have more Ashkenazi European Jewish babies. By the way, if you spoke this on a campus in the United States now, after Trump signed that law, it'd be illegal. There'd be no freedom of speech. But when will Christians stand up to what's happening in Israel. This is not, brothers, sisters, this is not just a secular issue in Israel. This is also an Orthodox issue in Israel as well. Okay? Now we're going to get into these 7 Noahide laws. All right, very serious issue here. This is from Kabbalah Online. Kabbalah Online, by the way, is part of the Chabad website. All right, here are your 7 Noahide laws right there for you. Carry out justice, no blasphemy, no idolatry, no illicit intercourse, no homicide, no theft, and don't eat limb of a living creature. All right, now, depending on where you read it at, depends on the order you find this in. And what I have that I'm going to share with you here on the desk here from the Talmud on the Noahide laws, that's only a fraction. Under Rambam, I did not include his writings on this as well, but you could write a book on what he wrote about it. That's under the Laws of Kings, where he talks about that, which was totally, I did a message completely on that as well, debunking this whole idea that Rambam does this Law of Kings. That was written in the Bible. You didn't have to write a Talmudic book on that. But anyway, what is important, what you see highlighted here, no idolatry and no blasphemy. I didn't highlight no blasphemy, but no blasphemy is very important. You're going to see why when we look at this in the Talmud. But both of these no blasphemy prohibits a curse directed at the Supreme Being. All right? You're going to find out in a little bit, though, that also includes you're not allowed to say the divine name, especially if you're a Gentile. No idolatry prohibits the worship of any human or any created thing. So those of you that believe that Jesus Christ is divine, you're not allowed to worship him. Why do you think there's such a major movement in the Messianic community to lower Jesus down as just a little bitty guy, a prophet? Or, well, they'll call him a Messiah, but he's just a son of Israel like any other son of Israel. See, you're not paying attention. Brother Paul, you guys, you're not paying attention to these things. There's a lot of serious things happening there that you're not paying attention to. And Mark Biltz, who supports Rabbi Shapira, that's going around putting Jesus as a second-class citizen to all other Israelis, he's making Jesus equal with any other Jew. He said, because all the Jews are sons of God, and therefore Jesus is no better than they are. I don't go that route. No, sir. I stand with Jesus Christ 100% all the way, and I will not accept Noahide laws. All right? Now, let's get started with it. Death sentence for the Noahide law. All right? We're going to get into that. Let's see. We're going to be going to Sanhedrin volume. I have Sanhedrin right here on the top of my desk here, so you can see the Sanhedrin volume here. We're going to open this up and read for you. You can look here on your screen. And we're going to go to Sanhedrin 56a, is where we're going to start at right here. And highlighted in yellow. I'm actually going to be reading even the yellow that comes from my book as well. Because it is stated that, and he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord shall be put to death. All right, notice that. That happens to be, let's back up again. That is under law number 2, no blasphemy. Some commentators put the carry out justice as the last law. Okay, so no blasphemy could be the first one. This is not what we find in the 10 Commandments. God didn't say anything about you can't say the divine name in the 10 Commandments, right? But you're not allowed to say it, right? Here we go, right here. He that blasphemeth the name of the Lord shall be put to death. I might think that death is meted out when an ineffable name is employed. Whence do I know that all substitutes of the ineffable name are included in this law? From the verse, any man that curseth his God showeth culpability for any manner of blasphemy, even without uttering the name. All right, let's continue on in the yellow there. But the sages maintain blasphemy with use of the ineffable name is punishable by death. With the employment of substitutes, it is object of injunction. All right? If a heathen son of Noah, okay, a heathen, a goyim, blasphemed employing substitutes of the ineffable name, he is, in the opinion of the sages, punishable by death. Why so? Because it is written as well, the stranger as he that is born in the land, when he blasphemeth the name of the Lord, shall be put to death. So, what is a substitute? Hashem. How many of you love to go out there and say Hashem like the Jews do? That's a substitute. For a Gentile, that's punishable by death. Okay? Must utter the ineffable name, but the heathen is punishable even for the substitute only. It teaches that the stranger and citizen are stoned, but a heathen is decapitated. For I would think since they are included in the prohibition, they are included in the manner of execution too. Decapitated, that's chop your head off. All right? Chop your head off. You as a Gentile, if you go around saying Hashem, and believe me, right now, you don't have to think it's going to be no big deal or nothing, but I guarantee you one day, it will be. For a short period of time, that beast system will rise up. And we talk about beast system, you have to understand, Jesus identified who was a beast. I guess we forget about that. Our rabbis taught 7 precepts where the sons of Noah commanded social laws. See, this is, if you'll notice, they're using that very common today too. They call it social laws or moral laws, right? Moral laws. Isn't that beautiful? We have moral laws. That's what they like to call them. Well, that's in the Talmud is why. To refrain from blasphemy, idolatry, next part of the page here, 56a and 56b, adultery, bloodshed, robbery, eating flesh cut from a living animal, also not partake of the blood drawn from a living animal, hitka added, immaculation, Simon added, sorcery. Rabbi Jose said the heathens were prohibited everything that is mentioned in the section of sorcery. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh a son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or observeth the times and enchantment of a witch or a charmer, etc., etc. Right on, right? And the thing is we find out that the Levites and the priests were guilty of that very passage right there, according to the prophet Nehemiah. Well, no, yeah, Nehemiah said it, and also Ezra also wrote about that as well. The Levites and the priests were guilty of doing the sorcery right there. That's how they brought in the Nephilim race in amongst the priesthood. That's why Jesus said that the Pharisees were of their father the devil. Think about that. And by the way, if you want to know more about that heathen there, the pasim that is used up here as we were reading, perhaps is the idea of underlying the assertion, pasim, that heathen is liable to death for the neglect of any of these. All right? In other words, if you are a Gentile and you break any of the 7 Noahide laws, you are punishable by decapitation right here in the Sanhedrin. All right, goes on, shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment. The Lord is a prohibition against blasphemy, and thus it is written, and he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. Now, God may rightly refer to social laws. That's one part of the Sanhedrin. Now let's look at the Arachim. And there we go. In the Arachim, you can see it on your screen here. We read here 66b. This one here is really interesting because it's kind of about, it's not specifically about abortion, but it is. If a woman is about to be executed and does not wait for her until she gives birth, but if she had already sat on the birth stool, one waits. So, according to the Mishnah part of the Talmud in Arachim, a woman that is giving birth to a baby, unless she's already on the stool itself, she could be last trimester, but if she's been condemned to death, they kill her and the baby both. Crazy. All right, Yabamoth. All right, here we go. We're going to go now to 69b. Another one, this one again is about abortion. She never was pregnant if she is found pregnant. The semen until the 40th day is only a mere fluid. All right, if you drop down to the bottom of this, and cannot be regarded as a child. We're going to get right back into the Noahide laws, okay? So don't worry about that. I forgot how I had these laid out in this PowerPoint presentation here. Okay, but I wanted you to be able to see some of these different points here, right? All right. This one here is from Avodah Zarah. Okay. Yep, right here. I like to open mine up because I might have something marked in here that I don't have marked for you guys here. Anyway, in Avodah Zarah, if you look at 16b, this is about Mary. I just want you to see, because not everybody gets to see everything that's written in the Talmud. And this is why I caution you of taking instruction from rabbinical teachers today. Our rabbis taught when R stands for rabbi. Eliezer was arrested because of minuth. By the way, a minuth, so you know who the minuth is. This is we're a special reference to Christians. Okay, they're considered heretics, so they use that word minuth. They brought him up to the tribune to be judged. All right, now this is about this particular guy. He's brought him up to be judged. You got to see why though. Walking in the upper market in Sepphoris, when I came across one of the disciples of Jesus the Nazarene, Jacob Kephar Shechaniah by name, who said to me, "It is written in the Torah, thou shalt not bring the hire of a harlot into the house of the Lord thy God. May such money be applied to the erection of a retiring place for the high priest." To which I made no reply. Said he to me, "Thus I taught by Jesus the Nazarene, for of the hire of the harlot hath she gathered them, and unto the hire of the harlot shall they return. They came from a place of filth, let them go to a place of filth." Those words pleased me very much, and this is why I was arrested for apostasy, for thereby I transgressed the scriptural words. Now see, he considered it a transgression, and this is why he got arrested, because he said it, because it goes on to say, "Remove thy way far from her," which refers to the minuth, or the Christian, "and come not nigh unto the door of her house," which refers to the ruling power. So, in other words, they considered Mary a prostitute. All right? In the book Gittin, we read here, he asked them, "Who is the repute in the other world?" They're going to talk about Jesus now. They replied, "Israel." "What about joining them?" They replied. "Seek their welfare, seek not their harm. Whoever touches them touches the apple of his eye." He said, "What is your punishment?" They replied, "With boiling hot excrement, since the Master has said, whoever mocks at the word of the sages is punished with the boiling hot excrement." Refers to Jesus. By the way, you may not be aware of this, but many times they used in the Talmud when they were writing, because of the growing strength of Christians back in those days there, they would use Balaam, which you can see right here on this page here as well. Balaam was a name used in place of that of Jesus. We know this because we find this also in those writings as well. The secret doctrines of the Israel of the Zohar. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the Zohar and the writings here, just so you can see where this is going at too. According to the Midrash, Talpigoth, the Messiah will bring eternal peace, which of course was understood by the Israelites as peace for Israel, plus that which may follow extermination for all who did not enter conversion into the house of Jacob. Now that's very important you understand that. Right there. This is what they're pushing right now. Our good friend Laurel Austin, she was in the mall recently at a cosmetic counter thing there. They took her into their office there at the mall, and when she went in there, an Orthodox rabbi come out handing her a booklet on Noahide laws and encouraging her family to convert to Noahide laws and to keep the Noahide laws. All right? And because right now, this is why they're pushing this. This is why this is growing so rapidly around the world. And we really caused a major stir amongst Orthodox rabbis. That's why they're willing to lie to pastors and stuff and tell them there's nothing to the Noahide laws, because they don't want you to know what's really going on. Okay? But notice what it says on. We'll continue on. Conversion at the Messianic period will be apparently on a great scale, because all the nations of the world will gather about the King Messiah when he shall be manifested, seeing that these words of the Scripture must be fulfilled. And that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. To it shall the Gentiles seek. So they believe, this is Talmudic Judaism, this is from the Zohar. They believe that you will convert. I'm actually quoting this. This is quotes from the Zohar, but this is from the Secret Doctrines of Israel, book from the turn of the century, a couple of centuries back, 1900s. They believe that the Messiah cannot come until a major war comes up too, by the way. Now this was on Brother Paul Begley. I want to play this clip of the video as well next, because we're fixing to get into the prophecies.
So you can't just jump to conclusions.
Right.
I kind of thought that was interesting, you know, because we did the video there after I saw the peace deal where Trump's face kind of seemed to appear on that map there. I don't know where Brother Paul got this at there, but they definitely put Trump's face into it this time. And I guess that's to show their support for President Trump.
So you can't just jump to conclusions.
Right.
What you have to do is you have to study the Bible and then study the events unfolding, and then that will show you.
But you said a key thing right there. Don't just run over it.
No.
You have to study to show yourself approved.
Thank you.
You know.
And that's why when I say things about Noahide Law, you notice something? I've known about this Noahide Law thing for 2 years. I've not even spoken about it. You know why? It doesn't match the biblical prophecies.
You have to study to show yourself approved.
Jews slaughtering people is nowhere in this Bible as the end time prophecy.
Nope.
Nowhere to be found. It is a false narrative. It is a fake narrative. And even if there is a few loose cannon rabbis running around, believe me, this isn't the thought process of the people of Israel. This is not the thought process of the Jewish people.
No.
So what we do here, Heidi and I, is we take steps back. The people who hate Jews, the anti-Semitics who hate Jews, also hate Christians. They start out by hating Jews, and then they turn on the church. Watch what I'm telling you. Every person, there's people out there who say they're part of the body of Christ. They attack the Jews, attack the Jews, they attack the Jews, and then you know who they turn on next? You. Now,
Brother Paul, I know you say this is not in prophecy, but it is all over prophecy. Now, I agree with you. I agree with you on the respect that this is not, I would say the majority of Jewish people would never think like this. They would never, even if they, okay, let's say they know the Talmud and they know that there are 7 laws that are supposed to be ascribed to the Gentiles, because there are some Reform synagogues out there that try to downplay the idea that a death penalty would be carried out on Christians. And that's because a lot of Reform synagogues and Reform rabbis are not against Christians like that. And there's a lot of secular Jews that definitely do not believe in these things. And so I agree with you on those things there. But to label it that it's like an anti-Semitic thing, it's an attack on the Jews, and it's an attack next on the Christians, and it's an attack on you, or something like that, that would not be fair to say that. Because biblically speaking, we've got a major problem here. And Jesus himself clearly, he put the bloodshed of all the prophets off everybody, going all the way back, right on the Pharisees. But you got to think about it. Did the Pharisees exist back during the times of the prophets? Technically speaking, we might say no, not as far as a sect. But you have to understand who the Pharisees were. The Pharisees were and there again, that's not all Pharisees either, because it wouldn't be fair to do that, because we had Nicodemus, we had Paul, who also was a Pharisee. But there was a mixing of the bloodlines in the Levitical priesthood that brought in the Nephilim. This is what happened when they were in Babylon. Remember, those Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, and all that, when Israel went into captivity, they went with them. Why? Because they were assimilated amongst the Jews. I've even proven scripturally that the house of Israel had done the same thing. But then the Levites did it. They corrupted their own seed line. All right? And Jesus really hammered these Pharisees. But he also warned us of what was coming. So to say that there is no prophecy is an error. So let me just share with you though. And I've got all these things hidden. So let's go right to the screen here. Matthew chapter 10. We're going to start off here. Behold, I send you. Watch what he said. Watch how Jesus words this now. Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. We already know who he said the serpents were. He said that the Pharisees were a generation of vipers and serpents. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. And you shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them and the Gentiles. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how or what you shall speak, for it shall be given you at that same hour what you shall speak. For it is not you that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. And the brother shall deliver up brother to death, the father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. Now I have to tell you something. And Brother Paul, I speak this to you too as well, brother. Because of the video that you did, it really made me begin to search Scripture and prayerfully look at these things. And I saw things here that I never saw before. Right? So that's why I highlighted things the way I did. Let's look at it together. And I'll go through it slowly here. See, he says, behold, I send you, okay, as sheep in the midst of wolves. Right? We go to verse 17. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to the councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. Synagogues, okay, to scourge you. That can be physically beating you, or that can also be verbally beating you. And that goes on a regular basis in the synagogues even to this day. If you look at the Greek word, it can be physical or it can be like an allegoric type of expression. In other words, they could be lashing you with their tongue. You have no clue what rabbis say about Gentiles. No clue. Especially in the Orthodox community. You go to Israel, you got yeshivas on every single street, and sometimes multiple yeshivas on the streets, especially in Jerusalem. What do you think in the yeshivas they're doing, Brother Paul? They're studying Talmudic literature on a daily basis, day in, day out, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. Put me to shame on studying it. Right? And these guys, they go into the synagogue, and let me tell you something. You Christians, when you're in Israel, you're mocked, made fun of, and no, it's not by some little tiny little minority either, by many of them. Okay? And you shall be brought, blue here, in the blue, you shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake for a testimony. Against them, who's the them? Who's the them? The antecedent is those that are going to bring you up into the synagogues. Brother Paul, that's not Sharia law Arabs, okay? That's Jewish men that are going to bring you up and scourge you in their synagogues. That's not even Jewish women. You can throw that out automatically too. It's going to be men. And you shall be brought before the governors and kings. What are they doing with the Sharia? What are they doing with this Noahide laws? They're wanting the President Trump to enact it. They got Putin, Chabad's got Putin, Chabad's got all the presidents of the United States pushing the Noahide laws in the educational system. Why they got it in the education system, Brother Paul? They got it there because as soon as this whole system, they get it switched over, they get this war going where they can bring America down to its knees as well. I've already been told this by Mossad people. And he told me, he said, Steve, he said, you better go to the woods, brother, because I'm going to tell you something. He said, I love you. And he's an Orthodox Chabad Jew too. Right? He said, but I appreciate your stand. He said, at least you're honest. He said, you got the courage to stand for what you believe. He said, but they're going to take and genocide the American people. And he didn't specify how that genocide goes, but I already know what he's talking about. Okay? So when it says, and you shall be brought before governors and kings for my sake, notice this, for a testimony against them, because you'll be standing for the truth at that time. But why does it say against them and the Gentiles? The them are these rabbis that are scourging you in their synagogues. But why the Gentiles? Because you Gentiles out there, you ministers, and this is not pointed at you, Brother Paul, in this case here. There's a lot of ministers out there right now that are standing on this big thing like no big deal, right? It'll be a witness against you as well that day. That's why I don't want to see, especially my good friend Brother Paul, I don't want to see you on that side, Brother Paul. I want to see you on the side of Christ. I've always known you to stand for Jesus Christ, brother. That's the side I want to see you stay on. And I know you love the Jewish people. They're my people. I love them as well. We can't help them by going on that side there because you see what's going to happen. But when they deliver you up, take no thought how you shall speak, for it shall be given you in that same hour what you shall speak. Right? For it is not you that speak, but the Spirit of your Father which speaketh in you. Now notice this in verse 21. And the brother shall deliver up brother to death. You know, I've wondered about that for a long time. I kind of thought that was just natural. You know, you got your brother lives with you, you know, and he turns you into the police. Not to say that's not the case as well. But it says, father the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents and cause them to be put to death. Why doesn't it say anything about the sister? Brother shall deliver up brother to death. That's going to be brothers in Christ. They're going to deliver up their own brethren. You know how they have that, what is that? They call that rapid response or something like that. A clergy response, there it is. Clergy response, working with the government to turn in your parishioners. You know that clergy response team there, right there, is the one that says the father, the child. Those members of the clergy response, you'll hand over your own children. Father, the child, and the children shall rise up against their parents. Congregations that realize their pastors and their wives that went against the Noahide laws will stand on the other side. And I know maybe that don't seem like really that's prophetic, but let's take some more looks in. Matthew 16, how is it that you do not understand that I spake it not to you concerning the bread, that you should beware of the leaven of the Pharisees and the Sadducees? Then understood they how that he bade them not to beware of the leaven of bread, but of the doctrine of the Pharisees and of the Sadducees. Brother Paul, there's your doctrine. Look up Nehemiah Gordon. Nehemiah will tell you. Nehemiah Gordon will tell you the Pharisees, in order for you to be an Orthodox rabbi, I'm going to tell you just like it is. In order for you to be an Orthodox rabbi today, you have to be able to trace your lineage from your father to your father to your father. They everyone have to be rabbis all the way back to the Pharisees of 2,000 years ago. That's a fact. You're not an Orthodox rabbi if you can't trace your lineage like that. Now, that doesn't mean that all Pharisees have a Nephilim bloodline within them, because not all of them were guilty at that time, right? But Jesus said to them, beware of the doctrine of the Pharisees. So then you know 7 Noahide laws is false, because Jesus told you to beware of it. All right? There's your prophecy there. Matthew 23, and say, if we had been in the days of our fathers, we would not have been partakers with them in the blood of the prophets. He's talking about the Pharisees, by the way. Wherefore ye be witnesses unto yourselves that you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Now he's talking about the Pharisees, the Orthodox Jewish community of 2,000 years ago, which, by the way, the Orthodox community, especially the rabbis, are descendants of those people. Now, I've got a lot of good friends that are Orthodox rabbis that I do dearly love. And my desire is for them to repent and to come out of this. Paul was a Pharisee as well, but it just goes to show that he wasn't of that bloodline. Watch what Jesus just said, wherefore you be witnesses unto yourselves, you are the children of them which killed the prophets. Fill you up the measure of your fathers. You serpents, you generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? You know, we talk, Brother Paul, you mentioned in there the beast kingdom or the beast system that's coming. Why do you think the scripture calls it a beast system or a beast kingdom? Because there's such thing as reptilian race. Satan is called the serpent, that old dragon, isn't he? Wherefore, behold, I send to you prophets and wise men and scribes, and some of them you shall kill and crucify. That's you shall kill. That's future tense. Some of them shall you scourge in your synagogues and persecute them from city to city. That's all future tense. That is prophecy. And I'm not going to say that it wasn't happening 2,100 years ago, or 1,900 years ago, or if it was happening 1,800 years ago, and 17 and 16 and 1,500 years ago. That's true. But, let me take that back. I take that back. No, it wasn't. It happened a little bit right after the time of Jesus' crucifixion. But once the Christians came into power, it kind of died out. But remember the deadly wound of that beast. Remember that seven-headed beast that comes up out of there? If you look in the scripture, that beast is a serpent, a sea serpent. He comes out of there. His deadly wound is healed. Wherefore, behold, I send you prophets, wise men, scribes. Some of them you shall kill and crucify. So they're going to kill. Who are they going to kill? Christians, Brother Paul. Christians. Who's doing the killing? Well, if they're getting scourged in their synagogues, I would assume that it's going to be some Orthodox rabbis, right? And persecute them from city to city. That upon you, who's that you, the Pharisees, may come all the righteous bloodshed upon the earth. From the blood of righteous Abel unto the blood of Zacharias the son of Barchaeus, whom you slew between the temple and the altar. But if you'll notice, he puts all the bloodshed upon the earth, upon them. That's that reptilian serpent race, right? John chapter 8, more prophecy. Jesus says here, you do the deeds of your father. Then said they to him, we be not born of fornication, we have one Father, even God. Jesus said unto them, if God were your Father, you would love me. For I proceeded forth and came from God, neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech, even because you cannot hear my word? You are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. Now Jesus just told you who their daddy was, right? And here's your proof. Ezra chapter 9. The princes drew near unto me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests of the Levites have not separated themselves from the peoples of the lands, doing according to their abominations, even of the Canaanites, the Hittites, Perizzites, Jebusites, Ammonites, Moabites, Egyptians, and the Amorites. For they have taken their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the peoples of the lands. And yea, the hand of the princes and rulers have been first in this faithlessness, and that is harotz. And why does it say harotz? Harotz? Lands, plural? Because the Perizzites, Hittites, and Jebusites, and Ammonites, they were just taken over there with them in captivity, but they weren't from there. They were all mixed Nephilim bloodlines. You can find that in Numbers 13. And in Hebrew, it's Nephilim. It's not giants. Okay? So the thing is, that seed got mingled. So when Jesus said, "You are of your father the devil," and of course, if you remember, they said up there, "We be not born of fornication." But Jesus made it real clear that they were. Now, maybe they weren't born of fornication by their particular parents at that particular time, but just take it back one generation, and they were. That's what people don't pay attention to. All right? Here's another one here on the secret doctrines of Israel, just so you know. All right? This is interesting, too. Look at this right here, Brother Paul. This is Zohar right here, right? "As there is a serpent below, which is still at work in the world, so there is a sacred serpent above, which watches over mankind in all the roads and pathways, and restrains the power of the impure serpent. It is one of the adornments of the heavenly throne." So they consider what they call the sacred serpent. And by the way, Brother Paul, the Gaon of Vilna, the secret doctrine of the Gaon of Vilna right here, this book here, Brother Paul, I encourage you to buy this book and read this book. It's 2 parts to it. As you can see, I got so doggone many of these things marked in here. But, you know, they believe in what they call the holy serpent to be their Messiah. They call it the kosher serpent. New Age technology is raising its head from the dust. By the way, Brother Paul, this book right here, this is not against these doctrines. This is for the doctrines. So it's not somebody writing against the Jewish people. This is Jewish people letting you know what they believe, okay? Give you an idea right here. Higher Adam, the greater king players using the same scripture, albeit wearing different customs within different scenery. The supernal wisdom of Adam, the esoteric teachings of the Kabbalah, has been raising itself from the ashes with a new clarity, accessibility, and with the accelerating, synthesizing power of the kosher serpent. New Age technology is raising its head from the dust. The Nachash, which is serpent, Hebrew for serpent, once again in partnership, right alongside Adam, is regaining its former upright position, reclaiming its robotic arms and legs. And by the way, Brother Paul, Mossad agents shared with me how that they are crossing the AI technology, and the only one they can cross it with is with Sephardic, not Sephardic, but Ashkenazi Levitical bloodlines, because their DNA matches that of the giants. Take that to the bank. That's a fact. See, I'm not against my people, Brother Paul. What I'm against is that Nephilim bloodline that's trying to set up and take over this world, that's going to behead our brothers and sisters. And it is very real. Very real. And by the way, that's also the ones that are funding these jihadist Arabs that, which they follow the same law. They claim to have the same God. And believe me, Allah is not my God. Jesus Christ is my God, and I won't accept another. Matthew 24, another prophecy. "For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." But what happens next? "Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake." Whoa, 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 whoa. We already know from Matthew 23 who's going to be the one delivering you up. Because you're being taken to the synagogues, and all you be taken to the synagogues, you're also being delivered up to the magistrate and to the king and to them too as well. And then you're being delivered by Orthodox Jewish people. So they deliver you up to be afflicted and shall kill you. Again, prophecy. Another prophecy, Matthew 24, we continue on. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. That's what's happening right now, Brother Paul. People are getting offended. See, the Jews get offended because you dare say anything about the Noahide laws. And so, brother shall betray brother. Father shall betray his children. The children shall betray the pastors. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. That's happening right now. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. That's true. but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. John 16. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh, that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth God's service. Who's that one that's going to do the killing? The one that puts you out of the synagogue. And he will think that he does God's service when he does it. Why? It's Talmudic. And believe me, I will say one thing. I don't think that these rabbis, they don't mean bad maybe. They really believe in their heart that they should do this. Right? And these things will they do unto you, because they have not known who? The Father nor me. Who didn't know the Father and me? Jesus said it was the Pharisees. But these things have I told you, that when the time shall come, you may remember that I told you of them. And these things I said unto you at the beginning, because I was with you. Hebrews 10:24. Let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together as the manner of some is, right? Verse 26, for if we sin willfully after we have received the knowledge of the truth, there remaineth no sacrifice for sins, but a certain fearful looking for the judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. You know what that's speaking about right there? That's because right when they start to get this movement going, right when the Antichrist begins to reign and they begin to kill the saints and cut off their heads, then Christ comes, and he comes to destroy this earth and all the wickedness on it. That's when he'll hide his own, while his indignation is poured out. But it says, but a certain fearful looking of judgment and fiery indignation which shall devour the adversaries. He that despised Moses' law died without mercy under 2 or 3 witnesses. Oh, how much sore punishment suppose ye shall be thought worthy, who hath trodden under foot the Son of God, and hath counted the blood of the covenant wherewith he was sanctified an unholy thing, and hath done despite unto the Spirit of grace. I don't want to be on that side. Revelation chapter 20, more prophecy about what's going to happen. Verse 2, he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him. Actually, that's not 1,000 years. If you ever look at that right, that's thousands of years. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed a little season. And I saw thrones that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Jesus and for the word of God, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image. Now they had received his mark upon their foreheads and their hands, and they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years. Remember, that's right there in the prophecy. Revelation 12, and when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child, right? And the woman were given 2 wings as a great eagle, and she might fly into the wilderness, and in her place where she is nourished for a time's time and a half time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to do what? To make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. What do you know? We're at the end, friends. There's so much more I could have said, and there's just time doesn't allow it. There's just tons of things. And so I just encourage you to really sincerely pray about it. And those of you that are listening, pray about it as well. We're in a late hour, friends. And there is prophecy. And there is more prophecy than that when it comes to these Noahide laws. I'm just beginning to search. God bless you. Thank you for watching. Again, please don't go beat up on Brother Paul and Sister Heidi. They're entitled to their opinion as well. But anyway, God bless you, and thank you for watching.